Welcome everyone to Buying Local. I'm your host, Mike Nelson from Five Towers Media. Joined today by the Mayor of Glens Falls, Bill Collins. Bill, thanks for joining us.
Thank you for having me. Appreciate it.
Yeah, absolutely. I meant to ask you, have you done any other podcasts?
I not in a long time. About 3 years
Yeah,
ago, I did a local Glens Falls podcast about
nice.
small businesses, and so I was happy to do it. So no,
Yeah, no, we really appreciate it. Appreciate you coming on. And I know we've got time is always short in everybody's lives these days, so I'll try to stay on point and not go off on too many tangents on you here.
uh,
Um,
well, it's usually I that go off on the tangent. So
okay.
I'll offer you. You can help me if I go off. Please interrupt me, and we'll get back on to the next question. So,
That sounds good. That sounds good. Bill, I of course, before I stepped into this interview, I was reading up on you a little bit, kind of looking at some of your background, which if I try to reiterate some of your past accomplishments, I'm probably just going to butcher it. So if you don't mind, maybe just, give our listeners and viewers just a little bit about who you are and kind of what your background was before you stepped into the limelight of politics here locally.
Sure. Well, it's funny. I was born and raised in Glens Falls. Left for a little while to go to college and lived down in the Florida Keys for a little bit, but I've been back ever since. So born and raised here. We raised my family here as well. My parents, my grandparents, all had political ties to Glens Falls, but I never had any intention of getting into politics. I spent 30 years working in human services, working with people with developmental disabilities, with intellectual disabilities, people with mental illness. And my last 18 years of my career was working for Special Olympics New York as a statewide director. And it was about 15 years ago that local officials here in Glens Falls, a former mayor, and other friends came and saw me and said, would you be interested in serving on the Board of Public Safety? I said, no, I'm way too busy. I have my regular job with Special Olympics. I also have a small screen printing business called Celtic Attitudes Clothing. And I always had two jobs. I just don't have time. And an hour later, I was on the Board of Public Safety. So that was my introduction. I spent 3 years on the Board of Public Safety that helps oversee the police and fire department, their volunteer position. And it was a great primer. And I just love the opportunity of how small Glens Falls is and how you can make a difference. And so, again, I never had the intention of running. A friend of mine was on her second serving on the second ward where I'm from. I grew up and then now live in the second ward in the city of Glens Falls. And she had served her terms. There's term limits in Glens Falls. They're 4-year terms, 4-hour terms. And so they're 4-year terms. And so she was finishing up her second term and said, you should really do this. And I've always been about making a difference. Did I think I could make a difference? And Glens Falls is just starting this amazing revitalization. We were on a roll and doing really well. There was no political infighting, which was fantastic. So I said yes, I'd run, and now 12 years later, here I am as the mayor of the city that I grew up in, that I love so much.
That's awesome. And I know for viewers and listeners that are joining us here, Mayor is currently in the queue right now, right in the lobby. So if you hear any background noise or anything like that, it's just a little bit of stuff, a little busy business coming through the speakers there.
It's political season, and I just want to make sure that any conversations that I have with folks aren't done from the mayor's office. So
Absolutely.
don't want somebody to thinking I'm doing something underhanded. So
Yes.
happy to be here, but got to worry about people wandering by. I don't own the lobby here at the police.
So we've got a few things to talk about, and again, I'm here to really keep things business focused and not be partisan in any way. So if you don't mind, let's move the discussion over to the Glens Falls business community, and let's start with some of the economic growth that you see or that's happening? You know, obviously there's been a lot of economic development in recent years in the local community. And, you know, can you give us maybe an update on some of the things that are going on, and maybe tell us about any initiatives that you are going to be working on to maybe attract or retain local businesses?
Sure. Well, the first thing before we talk about the most recent uh, explosion of growth in Glens Falls,
Yeah.
I would be remiss if I didn't say that it started before I became mayor, and that my job when I was running for mayor and even when I was on the council, the objective was to keep the momentum going. And I'm proud that that's happening in Glens Falls, but I want to make sure that I don't talk about these things in a way that sound like I'm saying, look at all the great stuff I've done over the last.
Yeah.
It just wouldn't be fair, right? When I first got into office in that second ward, the Glens Falls was recovering from a financial crisis. Mayor Diamond, that was my first term in office, was his last term in office, and we had made massive cuts to our DPW, to our recreation department, to our cemetery department no longer exists. Even economic development office, community development office had 4.5 people. And at that point they had one part-time person. So we had done that. And thank goodness that Mayor Diamond made those necessary cuts. We started that at that point, we were starting to rebuild our fund balance. We were becoming financially and fiscally sound. And it was a pleasure to be part of that and to work as one vote as a council member to make sure that continued to happen. And so it was through his and then Mayor Diamond. We were investing in infrastructure and business, making sure that had some grants to help businesses grow in Glens Falls. And while we continued to build our fund balance, while we continued to be very fiscally conservative, and we had, a great opportunity. We had a former mayor who left and worked in the state under Senator Joe Bruno for years. His name was Ed Bartholomew, and he had come back and was serving as our economic development director. And so it was a great opportunity, and we've seen growth started then. We got the first round of the Downtown Revitalization Initiative. Glens Falls was awarded $10 million. Then Lieutenant Governor Kathy Hochul came to Glens Falls with the fake $10 million check, and we all went to the Civic Center and said, this is great. And then COVID hit.
Yeah.
And that stalled everything. We did work always. We're working on that, but now that DRI is coming to fruition. There's a groundbreaking of phase 2 of which is a HCR funded workforce development housing project, which will include over 4,000 square feet of both commercial and residential, in addition to 77 workforce level housing. So workforce housing, as HCR defines it, is housing that's on a sliding fee scale based on your income level. You have to be employed and working, but depending on how much you make, you pay a certain amount. And that's a great program in Glens Falls to make sure that we're not becoming gentrified. Prices are rising throughout New York, and we're opening housing that is both affordable and a good opportunity in living as part of our DRI.
That's awesome.
So that momentum has really reached a peak in my term of 3 years. We got out of COVID. We have now 26 thriving restaurants in Glens Falls, in a 2 square mile city. And we're talking about just in our downtown, 26 restaurants, right? That was unheard of 10 years ago.
Yeah.
We've got a momentum there. We're continuing to get grants, small grants, and develop business support. We've, in the past 3 years of my administration, we've handed out 30 small business development, not loans, but grants, where it's like a matching grant, You give up to $25,000 for those businesses that are coming here, investing in their thing. If they spend $50,000, we'll reimburse them $25,000 of that to start and develop a small business here in Glens Falls. And so as other communities are struggling with vacant properties, we're filling our vacant storefronts. Our restaurants are thriving. We're extremely lucky. That
Yeah.
DRI that Kathy Hochul, then Lieutenant Governor, came to Glens Falls with, that is turned into that. And so we're kind of, I think, a poster child for how a DRI is supposed to happen. Although it's taken so long, it's hard to feel good about it. Because, you know, it was 8 years ago that she came and visited us, but now it's coming to fruition. And that $10 million worth of state funding has led to, is part of $49 million of development that's happening in Glens Falls.
Yeah.
And it's just a great opportunity for us. And now that we're getting ready on May 16th, we'll be doing a ribbon cutting of our market center, which is both an event center and a place for our farmers market on Saturday mornings to grow and to be able to expand and to bring more economic development down. But that so that groundbreaking is a tremendous opportunity.
No, I think we lost you, Bill.
49 that is directly tied to the DRI right on our South Street. And if you, Michael, I know that you're from the Saratoga area, right?
Well, I lived in Glens Falls, Queensbury for almost 20 years. But we're in Greenfield Center now, but yeah.
So then you'll know that we jokingly called forever since we were kids. South Street was the street of dreams, right? And
Yes,
it was
sir.
the street of nightmares, really, right? It's the last downtrodden corridor in Glens Falls. Well, that $74 million that we mentioned, the 49 of the DRI and 24 more million, is happening right now in Glens Falls and will be completed in the next 18 months. All of it. It's amazing.
It is amazing. It's amazing to see the changes that are happening down there on South Street right now. I mean, I drive through there. I don't know. I'm in town probably 4 days a week these days, and you know, just driving through, watching it change, watching that farmers market area come about, and you know, what a contrast to the former OTB building that was in there. You know, it's just it's I mean, you can't, night and day is not even the right thing to say there. It's just a completely different world over there. So it's really excited to see that, and the opportunities that are going to be coming from that, I think is really great. So yeah, very excited about that.
And I don't even think we've made the full public announcement yet. We literally just set the date of the ribbon cutting, and we're hoping the governor will come, and the lieutenant governor and head of HCR and the head of Empire State Development, because this is what they had hoped. And for a while there, you know, during COVID and afterwards, when the inflation was skyrocketing, when interest rates were going up, we didn't know that it was going to happen. So grateful to be here. And please, again, I think we now have the Friday, May 16th is the date. Please come and see that ribbon cutting. And we want to make this a celebration of Glens Falls and show the rest of the state this is how economic development happens.
Yeah, that's awesome. So let's move into a little bit of small business talk, right? Obviously, you know, for anyone that knows me and knows what our company does and who we work with and knows what I'm all about, small businesses are the absolute backbone, I feel, of every local area, local economy. I know you touched on some of the grants and other things. Anything else going on that you can do for, I know that was for new businesses coming in, but is there anything that you can do for like existing small businesses, or anything that you're working on that can kind of help them thrive in the upcoming markets?
Well, yeah, we have small business grants that continue to be, we call them small business support programs through our LDC. And we also contributed some of our ARPA money into that. And so we have right now about $200,000. It's available for, again, up to 25,000 per business if they just spend the 50,000 on opening a business. So we're always looking for it and growing. We know that small businesses are what'll keep us going in the long run, right? We're not we understand that that industry is not what it was, and if you make a focused effort, you might get one mid-sized company to come to Glens Falls, and we'd love to have that, but right now our focus is on making sure that we're removing barriers from small businesses to coming into Glens Falls. Economic development in Glens Falls, and I don't know other communities, I don't want to speak for them, but economic development in Glens Falls is redevelopment. And that comes with additional costs. We're not asking people, we'd like to protect our integrity of our downtown. It's not about tearing down buildings, it's about investing in new. And that means that it might be more expensive for a developer to do that. So we think that if we can help them pay for the infrastructure hookups, a great example of the DRI already having an effect is the Golden Monkey. And you said you came into Glens Falls, right?
Yeah.
So they knew that they could see the beginning. Their opening was coincided with our ribbon cutting of that market center. And they had bought the property. They wanted to do the Golden Monkey on the down, and then another on the down on bottom floor commercial. And then another restaurant, I think Taco King's is there and doing well. But they also wanted to develop the above. So 100 years ago, that building was a pool hall on the second floor. So great floors, I'll bet. But
Yeah.
the infrastructure for today's building and codes requirements for water, for the sprinkler system, for that to be residential apartments. They didn't know that when they bought it. They discovered later that the water hookups and the lines in the building weren't big enough. And we gave them economic development money because that was, if we're going to help, and we know they invested everything. They were a young couple, not just friends, I believe, a gentleman and his friend is not his girlfriend, but a woman who, business partner. We know that was a huge investment for them. These are not corporations. This is two people looking to invest in our downtown. We knew we need to help. Now, we couldn't help as much as we wanted, but I think we gave them a grant for, please don't quote me on it, but I want to say about $40,000 to help them
Wow.
pay for some of that additional infrastructure costs that they didn't know about, nor did we, until they bought the building and were starting to set it all up.
That's
So
awesome.
that's what I think we need to do, more and more of that, because economic development in Glens Falls is redevelopment in most cases.
Absolutely. I think that's amazing. I think any support that, our local and state and federal governments can give small business owners, especially, those folks, the entrepreneurs and the dreamers on the street of dreams for that matter. So that's amazing.
Yep.
So talking about downtown, obviously, I mean, we really kind of punched in on the revitalization of downtown, South Street really, I mean, just the whole downtown area as just, I think back to when I moved into the area in the late 90s and what a difference now from then until right now. So, is there anything else that maybe is just kind of coming in and people are just starting to hear whispers about as far as future projects, strengthening of the downtown district down there?
Well, I think the big thing was literally between December and January, the additional of $24 million worth of both residential and commercial on top of the 49 million in DRI passed through the planning board. And so that is the biggest news as of lately. I believe that we'll continue to, we just got another additional grant for accessibility. I think it's like $1.2 million that will help for creating people that are might have disabilities or low income that need to widen some doorways or build a ramp so that they can stay in their home and
Yeah.
make sure it's more accessible. That's a new one. We're right now have in front of us 4 different housing grants that we are available. We know that Warren County is in desperate need of housing. Anybody who building apartments or houses in the area in Warren County, they're filling up before they're done building them. People want to live here. They want
Yeah.
the clean, the safe neighborhoods. We've been voted Rocket Mortgage safest city in the country 2 years running. Of course, they don't really mean the city; they mean the municipal area, which includes Washington County, Warren County, and northern Saratoga counties. But so people are looking to come this way, and we need to continue to develop any way we can.
Yeah, it's again, what a change. And I'm always just flabbergasted at the amount of housing that we see going up in that area, Warren, Washington, and northern Saratoga County. And like you said, there's no vacancies. They're rented before they even finish the construction on them. It's amazing.
Yeah, we did there was a study done, I think, by Warren County just a few months ago that the vacancy rate in Warren County is like less than 1%. Right? You
Oh
can't.
wow.
The developers, as they build them, are filling up. What would think? We did a what we called this workforce housing a few years ago on Broad Street, across from the Hannaford on Broad Street. I think it had
Mhm.
71 apartments.
Oh yeah.
Uh, they thought it would take them 3 months to fill up, and they had to pull it down after 3 days. They had to pull
Wow.
down the notice, and they had to go to a lottery of people that had applied. So yeah, it's great. People ask, where are they coming from?
I
I
was
think
just
they're
about to ask that. I'm like, where are all these people coming from, man?
yeah, I think they're here. I think they're here already. I think people are. There are a lot of older folks that are looking to retire and coming out of the cities or out of the Hudson Valley and
Mhm.
want to get further north. But also there are people here. I got my son right now is 30 years old. Went to St. Bonaventure. Went to Manhattan. Was working in finance. Now with the pre-COVID, he doesn't have to live in Manhattan to keep his job. He travels maybe 30% of the time. He's in a 2-bedroom apartment on 14 Hudson, paying double what my mortgage and taxes are in my neighborhood. And as
Wow.
crazy as I think that is, he's very happy to do it. I think the next generation too is not looking to buy a house. I think we're one of my generation, buying a house was one of the first things when you got settled, you started having kids, we got to buy a house. And I don't believe they are. Their kids are having kids later, right? Or
Yeah.
less, right? The average family is like one kid. And then I think that they're also not necessarily looking to buy a home.
It's interesting. And well, that 14 Hudson is beautiful.
Yeah.
So, I mean, I get it. I get it.
Yeah. Yep.
So,
Um,
so talking about, obviously the business community, one of the biggest problems every industry is facing right now is workforce shortages. And it doesn't matter if you're in IT, if you're in HVAC, you're marketing, it doesn't matter which industry you're in. How is, or I would say how is, but is the city working with, schools, colleges, businesses, what to try to build a better pipeline? Like do you have any efforts from a workforce development standpoint?
So the city doesn't, but we've built one of the big focuses over the last 3 years is mine for myself and my administration is to form partnerships with the organizations that already exist. And one of those is Warren County themselves. And they have a great workforce development department, a great leader in Liza Oxendorf. I'm going to get her name wrong. I do it all the time. I butcher it. So I apologize, Liza, if you're watching.
I butcher everybody's last name, so don't
That's
worry
right.
about it.
Sorry. Yes. Right. So I we need to work to make sure that there's opportunities. We're communicating what positions are available. I think that we're through the worst of it. The city is. When I first took office, we had vacancies in both our police and fire departments, which I think are new, right? I don't
Mhm.
think those positions we've struggled filling. They're civil service exam positions. They're full retirement positions. They're great jobs, and we were down at 1.8 police officers, I think 7 firefighters, and we were struggling to find young people that wanted the jobs. And in the last 2.5 years, that's gotten better for us. We've been able to hire the people we need, and we're not fully staffed. We're always out of 145 full-time positions. We're always maybe 10 to 20 positions vacant as people come and go and retire, leave us for other opportunities. So right now we're doing better, but I know that we've got to continue to get the word out, to work with schools and the colleges. We're great to have partners with SUNY Adirondack and SUNY Plattsburgh, which has a campus at SUNY Adirondack. We need to make sure they're aware of what we have to offer, and to make sure that they feel they don't have to go outside the region for employment, which was clearly something when I was a kid. If you went to college, you almost had to go to Albany or south to get
Yeah.
a good job. And I'm hoping that that's less and less of a problem as we become a more interdependent community.
Okay. Okay. What about obviously infrastructure is always an impediment to business expansion, and I feel like in our current environment, things are changing so fast, whether it be transportation needs or broadband, utilities. Like, are there any things that you guys are doing that are going to help support business expansion from that standpoint, or investment in the region? I mean, I think we've got Hochul's got the electric pipeline coming down from the St. Lawrence. Uh,
Sure.
what do you get? Is there anything that the city is doing or working on?
Well, infrastructure, it's funny. When I think of infrastructure, I don't think of it at all, and maybe I should, but I don't at this point think of it about business and economic development. I see it as the health and the longevity of the city. And if you ignore infrastructure, and it's easy to do because it's so damn expensive and it hangs over your head as the mayor, you come in and a council and you learn that the long-term needs and costs and the debt, right, of that every city holds to one degree or another. So you have to always take the long-term approach. Where you're going to be 20 years down the road. If you don't continue to invest in your infrastructure, you're doing nothing but kicking that can down the road, and your community will suffer in the long run. So we can't do that. We also can't do it for economic development, right? We have an aging infrastructure, our water and sewer infrastructure. Right now, I could identify $60 million worth of needs of our infrastructure in our water and sewer plant that has an $11 million annual budget, right?
Wow.
So, and that's not looking very deep. That's just in the
Yeah.
easily identifiable needs. Those are the long-term things. Now we can't take out 60 million. It would be irresponsible, but we do need to continue to invest. We apply for grants and we see what we can get. And we have to always be looking and investing wherever we can without having our debt be too high too, right? Debt is a little different when it comes to municipalities than it is individual debt, right? And so you always need to have some, and it has to be healthy. Right now, we're in a good spot. We have an A+ bond rating. City's been doing well. We have a good fund balance, and we're healthy, and so therefore we're good. But we have to do that. Other things that you would mention, transportation and other things. So infrastructure also includes things like transportation. And so one of the great accomplishments that I was able to do in my first year in office was to merge the CDTA and the Greater Glens Falls Transportation Authority, Transit Authority. And so we merged those two. We were one of the smallest transportation authorities probably in the state or maybe even in the country. It was one of those things where Glens Falls plays above its weight. And around 1980, we started one that was a transportation, and we had 11 different little municipalities between Glens Falls, Lake George, Queensbury, Washington County, Hudson Falls, Fort Edward, and we just couldn't maintain it. And COVID was the big, I don't know if we'd call it the straw that breaks the camel's back, but with the trouble hiring people with the COVID problems, we had to close some routes down temporarily because we couldn't hire enough drivers, we couldn't hire enough mechanics, and we had been gone. The rescue CDTA was willing to help Greater Glens Falls Transit for a few years before I took office, and it became apparent that we really needed them to merge with us. And they had done so maybe 3 to 5 years ago with Fulton County. They had done the same thing, or maybe it was Montgomery County. Um, I think Fulton. I apologize for not knowing exactly. So they had added those, and so we knew that what needed to be done. I was able to go to Warren County and say, look, this isn't a Glens Falls only decision. If they're going to merge with us, we provide more bus routes in Warren County actually than we do in the city, because the city's only 4 square miles. And so Warren County, we got them to not just agree, but to buy in that this was the best thing to do. It would also connect us with CDTA in Albany and Saratoga. We wanted people, you couldn't hop on a bus in Glens Falls and get to Saratoga Springs or get to Albany. And now we've been able to make that a possibility. We merged with them last year, and this year we're going to look at how we can make those connections in a real and meaningful way. So that greatest consolidation of services in the last 30 years right here in Glens Falls.
Interesting. Yeah, I did not know that actually.
Yep.
Huh. Okay. What about I know we talked about and I still can't I did not know that there's 26 restaurants just in like the downtown area.
Isn't it amazing?
It's crazy. Yeah. I mean, I know that there's a lot of great restaurants, and I just never thought to think it would be that many. But
yeah, 15 years ago, that was literally Gourmet Cafe and David's Brothers.
Yeah. Right? Oh, I remember.
Only literal 2, because we have leaders in like Peter Hoffman, one of the first developers in Glens Falls, starting 15, 20 years ago. And he used to say those were the only 2 places he and his wife could go and get a bite to eat.
Yeah. Yeah. I remember when the Boston Candy Company there, Candy Kitchen, was getting turned over to the Downtown City Tavern. I was like, oh, thank God. Like, another option, right?
Yep.
So, obviously tourism and hospitality industry are big parts of any local, especially downtown, right? And like we said, there's 26 restaurants. And of course, we want to see all of them succeed and thrive. What strategies are being considered to kind of further boost tourism, bring people in, and to kind of help the hospitality related businesses in Glens Falls?
Sure. Well, there's several different things. The primary one that I think I'm the most proud of or happy to have it expanded is the relationship with Warren County Tourism Department in the city of Glens Falls, who has one tourism director, a fantastic lady named Amy Collins, no relation. And so the 2 of them working together got us a full page ad, I think, and mention in National Geographic's tourism edition. I forgot the name of it, but we're becoming a destination. And before, the only destination that was focused on at Warren County, probably for good reason, was Lake George, right? You take your best, if you're a county like Warren County is, you take your best hook for tourism and you focus on it, and that has been Lake George. But with the development, the economic development happening in Glens Falls, the Queensbury Hotel, the restaurants that are thriving, the Glens Falls is becoming more and more of a tourism destination, and we need to continue to collaborate with others and work to make the best and the most impact. Working together with Warren County is a fantastic thing. We also have one of the things that have been a focus of mine last year was to ask Warren County occupancy tax for some money to help us grow our special events in Glens Falls. We have almost 71 of them, none of them run by the city, and nor do we have the staff,
Mhm.
excuse me, nor do we have the employees and somebody to help. Like, we don't have an event director, right?
Right.
So it's been, these events are very small in most cases. There's a few anchor events. And so I went to Warren County Tax Committee and said, hey, if you have some money, I believe there are some key events like LARAC, like the Glens Falls Brew Fest. These events are economic drivers. Just ask the mayor of Lake George, or the previous mayor of Lake George,
Mhm.
Bob Blaze, who basically grew Lake George's season from literally being from the last week in June when school let out to the last week in August. And what he
Yeah.
was able to do in his last 15 to 20 years of his administration, because he didn't have term limits, right, was the longest serving mayor in I think the United States. Bob Blaze was.
Oh, wow,
Um,
really?
yeah, I mean, it was almost 40 years, I want to say.
Wow.
Anyway, he knew the economic development and special events could help him go a month early or a month late, and that would almost double his truly the sustainability of his community. It was truly a bedroom community, right? So his that lesson is not lost on me. We need to help, and so we are looking to grow our tourism in that way, because it seems like a pretty simple way to get more heads and beds, to more people to come and grow. LARAC is a great event, working with Phil at LARAC to help him over time turn that into, instead of 10 or 15,000 people that come for a Saturday and then come back on Sunday from this area, what can we do to make that 30,000 people that come and stay in hotels for the weekend
Yeah.
and come in there? Let's turn it into a full arts festival. Let's find packages and develop packages with the hotels in the region and transportation to and from. Advertise down into the Hudson Valley and New York City. Maybe bring some highlighted artists from other communities, maybe some famous master painters out of New York, whatever way that Phil thinks that could be done. Those, I think, are great opportunities to turn them into more, having a greater impact.
Yeah.
And that's what OCTAX dollars are for.
Very nice. What well, I know we're getting close on time, and I'm sure you've got other things to do than hang out with me on. What, when we look at the future, looking ahead, right? Like, what's the vision that you have for Glens Falls, the business network, changes, initiatives, things that you think are going to shape the local economy?
Thank you. Well, look, the first thing I'd say about that is we've got to keep the ball moving. We can't get in the way. We can't grow our as far as our local government goes and the size of our government. We need to keep it as small as possible and keep taxes down, because nothing will slow economic growth more than taxes, right? What we also need to continue to make those investments in our long-term infrastructure for the long-term safety and health of our city. We need clean drinking water. We need a sewage system that is working and not dumping into the Hudson River. And those are great things, and we need to keep them going, always with that 5 and 10-year idea down the road. Other things that I think that we can do is, as I've kind of mentioned, is economic development is redevelopment. Finding grants from the state and federal government that can help us encourage new businesses to take that leap, right? I think I'm in a great spot that I've owned my own screen printing business here in Glens Falls, down in the basement, right over on Maple Street, been there forever. Small printer. We need to make sure that the next small business guy, 2 guys, 3 guys, want to open a place, that Glens Falls has a spot for them. I also think that's great in to fill those empty spaces. But to do that, we've got to have some money without it being a tax burden. right? That's why I said state and federal dollars. I think our economic and development, we have an economic development director and a community development director. Their job is to get us those grants so that when that business leader comes in and says, or not leader, but entrepreneur comes in and says, I want to do this. I'd like to do it in Glens Falls. How can you help? They're going to have a startup cost because we're going to be putting them into some building that's been run down or empty, right? And so that's what we need to do, is help them get the leg up, and then they're on their own. Hopefully they get in and they get started and they can make it. And that's where that strength in numbers. 26 restaurants. What does that mean? Well, it means that the Civic Center has been successful. It means that those restaurants are going to generate more. They're not competing with each other. There are people coming down. We're becoming a food destination, right? And you're coming out of Saratoga to have dinner in Glens Falls. That's what we wanted forever. Please do that, and then come and buy a dress at a local shop.
Yeah, I went to the hockey game on Friday. Was it Friday night? I think it was Friday night. And my daughter actually, she's at the Queensbury. She goes to Queensbury. She's in the select choir, and they got to sing the national anthem. Right, it was really cool. But as we're walking, like because we had to park. Actually, we had to park down by 14 Hudson because there were so many people downtown. And it was like we're walking through. I don't think from the restaurants that we walked by, we probably walked by 3 or 4. I don't think I saw an empty seat in any of them. I mean, it was just the downtown was happening. So obviously there's some good things going on down there. And like you said, the city center is Civic Center. I'm sorry, geez, the Civic Center is doing their job, like you said. So that's great. It's great.
Yeah. The cool insuring arena is what you meant.
Cool insuring, yes.
It'll always be the Civic Center to me, but yes, I agree. And so other things that I think lead to economic development in just some small ways is making sure that we're addressing our parking concerns, because everybody for our age, we're used to not having a lot of restaurants down there and could park anywhere on Glen Street at any time. Yeah. And we need to be thinking about how we're clearing the way for development moving forward, and see what we can do and rethink it. Right now we have an amalgamation of parking laws that were developed over 40 years, and none of them seem to make sense in 2025, in the sense of 2025's reality in Glens Falls. We started a committee to look at those parking regulations and get input from the public and see.
Yeah, well, I'll give you my 2 cents on that. But I used to own a couple of buildings in Glens Falls, and one of them had no parking whatsoever. And so it was a nightmare for tenants because they couldn't park on the street because of the parking laws wouldn't allow that, because it's a public safety hazard, which was an old law on the books from, like, I forget when they said it was, like maybe the 80s or something like that. But I definitely know it's a challenge for sure. So hopefully, I'm sure you guys will come up with a solution now, for sure.
Yeah. It'll be easy. No problem.
Yeah. Parking is always an easy thing to solve, right?
Oh,
that's great.
And my sarcasm as being an Irishman doesn't help, because I want to say.
I think we might have lost you there, Mr. Mayor.
Sorry about that. We were so close.
I know. I was like, oh man. I was like, right when we lost you at the Irishman part there.
Yeah. So I just, my sarcasm in search situations doesn't always help, and that I was born with it, so I have to apologize. But people said to me, it was late COVID 2021. I started to have Zoom calls, and one of the first questions that was asked to me is, "What are you going to do about the parking problem?" And I said, what do you mean? And they said, "Well, it's terrible parking downtown. I can never get there." And I said, "Isn't that wonderful? The leaders of Glens Falls have only been working on getting that busy for 30 years.
Yeah.
And now what a great burden it is to have that issue, that people want to be here, they are here, and they have nowhere to park. And from an economic development standpoint, I was told just recently by a developer that it's one of the things they look at when they're thinking of going into a community. They love it when they drive into a community and they can't find anywhere to park.
Yeah.
They know that that's a place that has people in it, and that it's a great place to invest in. Now, that doesn't mean that we don't need to look at this and do some really thoughtful planning to lead us forward for the next 20 years, right? We
Yep.
need to think about that. Just like we need to protect, for the first time ever, Glens Falls has to protect from overdevelopment. We have to, but you couldn't, if you said that 15 years ago, that you were worried about overdevelopment in Glens Falls, I think that you would have, people would have laughed at you, right?
Yep.
We do, though, need to protect our integrity. We need to protect the integrity of our neighborhoods. We need to make sure development doesn't include tearing down buildings that could be redeveloped. We need to protect from overdevelopment or reckless development. So, but in that same case, what a great burden to have, right?
Yeah.
What a great problem to have. I know that there are many communities right around us that don't have that issue. And anyway, so that's where we're at.
No, it's a good point that you bring up, and to be fair, I hadn't thought of it that way. What do they say? Everything's got a silver lining to it, right? And there's definitely, I mean, you go to the places that I like to go in the country, they don't typically have very much parking available either. So it's like you said, it's a sign of success, and hopefully you guys will continue to work on it and come up with some sort of relief anyway if you can. But
absolutely.
Mr. Mayor, I really appreciate you joining us, taking the time out of your day and your week and your schedule. It's been great getting these questions answered and getting a little, glean into what's coming down the pike for downtown Glens Falls and really the greater Glens Falls area at large. I mean, it really is, those invisible borders. They're still we all affect each other. So it's great to see that there's so much opportunity and growth, and appreciate your efforts.
Thank you, and thanks for the invite.
Yeah.
I'm so glad you reached out to me. You feel free, if you'd like, in a few months, if you'd like to do an update. I hopefully would have some more news for you, and about update, because it's coming fast and furious right now.
Fast,
It really
right?
is.
Yeah, the world is moving
really
fast
is.
these days, so
Yeah.
trying to keep up. Thanks so
Yeah.
much.
All right.
All right.
Hey, thank
Appreciate
you.
it. Have a great day.
You too now. Thanks again.
Thanks.